You have shown us just how much we truly miss that. Open our minds to fresh ideas and help us take something new from this experience, something that can be used to benefit others. May the fellowship we enjoy also enrich our lives so that we in turn can enrich those around us. We remember you with goodness and grateful hearts. Amen.
Please continue to enjoy your meals, and we'll get started in 5 minutes.
Hello, ladies. My name is Nicole Schaefer, and I am the director of Her Traditions. Can everyone hear me? Great. I'll tell you, it is hard for me to capture in words everything that I'm feeling here today. Since the spring of 2020, we have been on a wild roller coaster ride. But getting to see all of you today and connect with you makes me incredibly grateful. And I guess that's at the heart of what I'm feeling is gratitude to be here together, gratitude to be able to celebrate women and all that we do as we run our businesses, run our homes, our communities, and well, run the world. I'm happy to see so many friends in the audience today, and I'm also happy to have the opportunity to meet many of you for the first time. For those of you who don't know me, in my heart, I'm a community builder. And before taking on this position, I spent the past 10 years working to build relationships to build a stronger community in the nonprofit world. It is truly a passion for me. So you might be wondering, how did I go from nonprofit world to working at a bank? Well, the truth is, Traditions Bank is incredibly invested in our community. We pour a great deal of resources into supporting women. We develop financial health resources, we host events like these, and we also fund scholarship programs that support women in their continuing education. And in fact, we're very fortunate to have one of this year's scholarship recipients here today. And Zipporah, I don't mean to embarrass you, but if you wouldn't mind standing so that we can all recognize you for your many talents. It was through my nonprofit work when I first became aware of how our financial health is intrinsically tied to every other aspect of our lives. For me, women's issues are truly a passion, and when the opportunity came that I could focus on women, community, and financial health, that was a call that I was certainly going to say yes to. Like you, I was a fan of Her Traditions before stepping into this role. And I was especially a fan of our annual women's events. While we haven't had a chance to get together like this since June of 2019, there have been a lot of exciting things happening. We launched our Shine a Light on Strong Women blog, where we feature women who are doing great things either through the community, rocking it as a business owner, or if they're supporting other women in achieving their dreams. So if you know of a woman who should be recognized, please visit our website at hertraditions.com and click on the Shine a Light on Strong Women link. We also launched our Her Traditions Facebook page, which I hope all of you are following, but if not, it is completely appropriate for you to pull out your phones right now and follow us. In addition to featuring tips on financial health, we also give updates about our events, and we share great things that are happening with other women and organizations in our community. Now, I mentioned that we create financial health resources, and one of the signature Her Traditions resources is our financial personalities. Through your financial personality, you're able to be more intentional about your actions so that you can achieve better results. Within the financial personality indicator are also a series of questions that determine your financial preparedness. Recently, we realized that we weren't being as transparent as we could be with how those scores were determined, and that was really a missed opportunity to give you the information you need in order to increase that score. So we fixed that. And in the near future, you'll be able to go to our website and take the updated financial personality indicator. Or if you already know your financial personality, you can just take the financial preparedness assessment. So now I'd like to ask you ladies a few questions. And when you think about the answers to these questions, think about them for yourself or another woman who you know in your life. And then please keep your hand raised the entire time. So we'll start with, are you or do you know a woman who is a caregiver? How about a woman who is a business owner? What about a woman that's going through a divorce? Right? How about a woman that is just starting out in her career? All right, thank you, ladies. I think I saw almost every hand in the house raised. And honestly, that's the results that we expected to see. And my reason for asking you these questions is because we are going to launch a pilot program focused on connecting women to financial health coaches, focusing on significant life events like the ones that I just mentioned, or even for women who want to be connected to a coach that is matched specifically for their financial personality or needs. We're very excited to offer this pilot as the next step in supporting women in their financial health journey. Now, if you don't currently have a relationship with a Traditions Bank associate, I can't encourage you enough to please take the first step to making that happen. Our Traditions Bank associates are going to be the ones who are determining who gets to participate in this pilot. So please reach out today and make that connection. I can assure you that any conversation you have with one of our team members is one that is guaranteed to be pressure and judgment-free. I'm happy to continue to communicate and offer new resources like this, because anything that we can do to help you get more engaged in your financial health that's our goal. We want to make it easier. We want you to feel supported. And honestly, that's what you should feel at every financial organization. But we know things like that don't just happen. There's always someone who's blazing the trail to make them happen. And at Her Traditions, that woman was Carolyn Schaefer. Carolyn is the founder and champion of Her Traditions, and she has been an amazing mentor and friend to me. If it wasn't for her persistence, a program like Her Traditions would have never come to life. So Carolyn, thank you for all that you've done and all that you continue to do. Now, Carolyn certainly blazed a trail, but she will be the first to tell you that she did not do it by herself. For a program like this to thrive, you need commitment from the top. And while this is a women's event, we are fortunate to have a gentleman here with us today, and I'm talking about Gene Draganowski, the president and CEO of Traditions Bank. For those of you who know me, you know I have no problem asking for things that I think will be impactful for our community. And I will tell you that Gene says yes to much more of my ideas than he says no. So I think that in itself deserves some special recognition. But in all seriousness, Gene gets it, he's invested, and if we had more community leaders like him, I can only imagine where we would be. I also would like to take a moment to recognize our Women's Council members. And I know there's a few of you in the audience today, and if you wouldn't mind just standing for a moment so that we can recognize you for all that you do to advise the Her Traditions program. Ms. Christie. Thank you, ladies. We appreciate you being here, and we know we have a couple more online as well. When I first started talking, I mentioned the roller coaster ride that we've been on, and in a room full of women, I don't need to go into the details about the challenges that we faced this past year, because no one has juggled more than women trying to find balance during life in a pandemic. But I would be remiss if I did not recognize the team at Traditions Bank, who has consistently shown up day in and day out to get creative and find new solutions to keep moving things forward for our customers who rely on them. So please, all Traditions Bank associates, take a moment and take some recognition, if you wouldn't mind standing, so that we can recognize you for your ongoing commitment and positive energy. I can't mention our team without thanking a few specific individuals who went above and beyond to make today happen. Whenever you attend an event, it is usually the marketing team who has magically pulled everything together. And by magically, I mean worked in painstaking detail. Our marketing team is led by the incomparable Suzanne Becker. Suzanne and Melissa Moore, who you saw at registration, Eileen Mullen, and Kristen Dumpwolf are my dream team, and I am enormously grateful to them. Gratitude is definitely the theme of the day, and I know all of you will be most grateful when I'm done speaking so that our keynote speaker can take the stage. If you look in your programs, you'll see Rita Coburn's bio, so I'm not going to read that to you, but I will tell you, you're in for an amazing treat. Rita has a way of putting things into a beautiful perspective. As a lifelong learner, she has a lot to share. Her personal story is one of resilience and grace. It is my enormous privilege to welcome Rita Coburn to York.
Thank you so much. It is a real pleasure to be here today. We had a good time with your breakfast group, and that was a lovely lunch, and I'm still really excited about being able to be here with you all. Last night, I had a wonderful dinner, and I thank you for treating a girl to dinner. Jean, Suzanne, and Nicole, and I, and Jean's lovely wife, Emma, was there. And one of the things that he did at dinner was to quote a Maya Angelou quote, and I'm like, whoa, okay. So he quoted the quote that many of you know. People will forget what you did, people will forget what you said, but they will not forget the way you made them feel. That is part of why we're here today. Because when you feel good, when you feel motivated, when you feel that you can accomplish things, you will. And our feelings are tremendously important. And at a time when we've all had this commonality of a pandemic that we're still going through, how we feel every day is going to dictate what we get done, how we plan for our futures, even in the midst of something that we don't know. But if you think about it, you've always been in that place. You've never known what the next step was going to be. You may have thought you did. So that's where we are today, continuing, regardless of what has happened, regardless of what may happen, and we're still planning and giving and growing and looking toward the future. Somebody just had a baby. Somebody just became a grandma. Somebody's gone off to college. Some people have many things that are happening in their life, but somebody also lost a family member to COVID. Someone lost a marriage. Someone didn't get the things that they were looking for in life. And yet we have to go on. One of the things that has taught me, the things that I know, is that I grew up with women that really did the things like combed your hair on the porch and talked. And I took the beans down the street to Miss Gatlin because she didn't have money. And I watched women, and I was fascinated by them because I knew that I was going to become one. I began to study women, and I mentioned I was kind of a sickly child. I wasn't real sick, but I had hay fever and my eyes would swell up, and I spent a lot of time in the house. And when I spent that time in the house, I spent it reading and I spent it listening. And that helped me to become who I am today. So your small beginnings, your childhood is just extremely important. And if many of us think about it, it is who we were as children, the household that we were born in, the community that we were in, that really sets the tone for our whole life. There are times when you have to get past that because there weren't things there that you want to keep. But there's no mistake about wherever you were or wherever you are. And the best thing that one can do is glean from those fields. Those are the leftovers. Somebody has come through and taken some of the wheat and the corn, but what's left from behind is something that we use for our present and to propel us into the future. It's important that we're here today, and I tell this story, and I stole it from Oprah. Oprah would say that we are from the same tribe. When she filled that studio that you used to see all those people with audience, she would fill that studio with us, those who worked for her. And she would tell us things, just like she was somebody's mama. And she would say things to us like, when you leave, cut your lights out in your office. I'm not Commonwealth Edison. Treat this like it's your home. Don't you get fresh flowers in the lobby? Don't you get food for less than $5? And you could get some food for less than $5 at Harpo. You could get pork chops, you could get steak, you could get whatever was being cooked. She treated us very well because she said that allowed us to be creative. There were things we didn't have to worry about, that she would take care of them, but take care of what I'm giving you. There's a responsibility in that. I learned that when I was growing up, and I gravitated to women who did. And your being here says, I want to continue to better myself. I want to continue to grow. And that's why we're from the same tribe. We want to grow. We want to better ourselves. So I hope I make you feel good. Your feelings are important to me. And I want to tell you a little bit about observing the life and listening to those stories. I didn't have grandparents because both of my parents grew up in the rural and poor South. It was hard to live, and their parents were deceased by the time they entered their teens. But I had an aunt, and I called her Mama Maymay. I loved her, and we had a connection. When I was born, my mother had a tumor. They pushed it to the side, pulled me out. She stayed in the hospital, and I spent the first 6 months with Ida Mae Moore. She would do the best things for me as I grew up and spent summers there. I did not eat I didn't drink orange juice that was not from an orange. I didn't eat corned beef hash out of a can. She would grind it and do the potatoes. So I grew up thinking, oh my word, things should be this way. And she was just wonderful. But she also helped found a Bible camp in Bangor, Michigan, which I would go with her every year to that camp. And not only would I go, but we were the type of people that if I sat near her, we were holding hands. And I would believe what she said to me. I was young, I was impressionable, and this was Mama Maymay. And she would say to me, you know, this is a kid talking. I go, you're so old, you didn't have a telephone? And she would say to me, we didn't need a telephone. And I would say, what do you mean by that? And she said, we could feel when someone needed us. And we left the field and we went to them. We could feel when we needed something. And we would look and we would see more of what was in front of us. So she taught me how to see. I didn't say this in breakfast because some of this sounds really kind of out there, but it's just my truth. There was once when I sat next to Mama Maymay, and she said to me, an uncle that I had left the earth. And I said, how do you know? And she said, I felt it. And we sat in silence and we sat longer. And later on, that big old black phone that never died out, that big phone that had the turnaround ring, it rang and she picked it up, and that was the truth. So I never doubted what she said. There are people in your lives that you can depend on, and you can become those people for others. You should have some people in your life that don't doubt what you say. You should have some people in your life that when they speak, you stop and listen. You have something to write with there, because if you hear things that you need to put down, put something down. Sometimes you may never look at it again, but the act of writing something down helps to instill in your brain what you see. All of you as little girls came here with the power. The Marvel comics, and I wear these cuffs and people call me Wonder Woman. for some reason, but I wear them. This one is a favorite, and this one actually has the words "a phenomenal woman" on it. Now, Marvel Comics, somebody comes from the land of Zor, whatever, and boom, they're down on Earth, and they have powers that they have to discover. Whether it is the womb, the Big Bang Theory, or your understanding that I came from heaven itself, you come down here with a power in you. And one of your tasks is to excavate that power and to use it, to slay the giants in your life, and to be able to see. The light and the vision in you is twofold. It helps you to operate when you need to see something. And it also helps you to cut things out of your life that don't need to be there. So I want to talk to you about your superpowers, but before I get there, I want to tell you the way that I found one of mine as a little girl. I was an avid reader because that's what I could do at home in my room alone. And later, I realized that I was forming the nucleus to become a writer and a storyteller. But I didn't know that then. I was just reading. And boy, did I love to read. And in our community, the books were in the basement of the village hall. And so I had to walk several blocks, maybe like 10, and go down in the basement. And to the left was the library, and to the right was the town jail. And if you're a little kid, everybody tells you what's going to happen. You're going to go down there, they're going to put the cuffs on you, you ain't ever coming back. You know, and so you were like, I'm going to get a book, I'm going to get a book. And I would beeline down there. And I would get Beverly Cleary, and I would get Pippi Longstocking, and I just liked her spunk. And I would get Encyclopedia Brown and go, ha, that egg was boiled if he swept it up. You know, I had all of these great stories, but I did not see myself. Born in 1958, in 1967 or so, where were the Black book writers? And then one day, I saw a book, The Bluest Eye, and it was by Toni Morrison. I turned it over, and there was a Black woman with a big afro. And I said, wow. I grabbed that book, and I ran all the way home, and I read it from front to back, and I was so disappointed. I was 9 years old. I didn't understand what I had read. There was the understanding in that book of sexual abuse. I didn't know what that was, thank God. Then there was the way that she said that we were so poor that people would stuff a towel under the door so the air wouldn't come in. And I said, why'd she have to tell that? I didn't like it. And I stumped my feet, rolled my eyes, something horrific, and sucked my teeth, which I still do from time to time. That means you're angry. And I said, I will write a book, and when I write a book, you're not going to be able to tell whether I'm Black or white, and it's going to be a good book, and I'm not going to tell all of this stuff about us. Years later, I wrote a book called Meant to Be, and by the time I wrote that book, I was happy to tell where I came from and to own the pain of my past and my parents and wrap it all up in fiction so you could believe that. Ain't really me, but I'll tell you something. Everybody that writes their first fiction book, most of it is them because you got to write what you know. So I did all of that, but that little girl, your little girl in you, knew something and was fearless enough to go down in that basement, to grab a book, and to believe I could write a book. It took years, but I did it. The thing that Oprah would often say to us is you don't get what you want, you get what you believe. What do you believe about yourself now? What did you believe about that little girl then? Do you have some of those things? Do you still want something? You can't trick belief. You can say anything, but what you believe is different. If you believe that you're not worth something, that is the way you will act in the world. If you believe that you can acquire and that is the way you will act in the world. It's not magic. You don't get what you believe just because you really believe it, because when you believe, it's action. I heard a minister say once, when you speak, your words take up legs and walk toward what you just said. Be careful what you say about yourself. You don't say, I'm never going to get this, or I'm never going to lose weight, or I'm never going to have enough money. You don't say that about yourself. You say something, I'm working on this, I will achieve this, I believe that, and say it and believe it, and things will come to you. Who would have thought that when I saw those books, and when I once saw one Black writer, I went after all of them. And then I got Maya Angelou. So what was it that meant that years later I would be sitting in her home, that I would have her blurb my book, that I would make a documentary on her life? It was that little girl that believed she could write a book. And so I want you to think, again, it's not what you want, it's what you believe. So over the years, I've read about women and was fascinated by them. And then I became an interviewer for Chicago's WBEZ, Chicago Public Radio Station, and I interviewed these women that I had read about. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you. So I read these women, and I'm going to name some of them to you, and they sat right across from me, and I interviewed them. Before I would interview them, I would read all of their books. I wanted to be respectful of their talent. So I interviewed Maya Angelou. I interviewed Toni Morrison, the Chinese-American author Amy Tan, several times. I think what Amy Tan did in telling us her story, and then her story going to screen, did more than any history books on Chinese Americans could ever do. That movie and that book said, I'm human like you, I fall in love, I have problems with my mother, I don't understand my mother, this is who I am, I'm just like you. It goes back to Maya Angelou saying, we are more alike than we are unalike. I also interviewed the romance writer Barbara Cartland, because everybody likes a good romance, okay? And then I read the Haitian writer Edwidge Danticat, the Chilean writer Isabel Allende, and your speaker the last time you guys gathered, the former talk show host and author and comedian Dr. Bertice Berry. When I interviewed Bertice, I felt a connection with her that was so good for me. I asked her like a little child, will you be my friend? And she looked at me like, girl, I don't even know. She looked at me and we laughed about it. And we started going back and forth with things, and we went into our vernacular, and she said, how old you is? I said, old enough to be your friend. And we went back and forth and we became friends. I would later get off a plane in LA and drive to her place in San Diego. Later, when her mother passed, I heard about it. I called her. I got on a plane. I got off in Charleston and I drove to Savannah. And I said, I just want to put an eye on you. Are you okay? This is what we are supposed to do as women. We are supposed to connect with one another. We are supposed to check on one another. We are supposed to have women in our lives that we can talk to, women that we may not talk to for a long time, but make that connection when you think about it. Don't give that up. I was fortunate. I became a storyteller, and I produced and directed documentaries. And one of them is on Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou and Still I Rise became a documentary. It gained a Peabody. This iconic woman was so gracious to me that I will tell you that Oprah's I was working for Oprah Radio, and Oprah's generosity was go down, interview her, set up things for her, but don't have her leave the house to go to a radio station. She's old, you know that? And I was like, okay. And Maya Angelou's generosity was when I got there, she said, your room is upstairs, darling, you will not need a hotel. And I just marched my bags on up the stairs. Later, once she told me, she said, you know, whenever you're coming, everybody smiles. I like that. She said, now, if you were coming and people went, oh, she said it would be a different thing. But you are welcome here. You're welcome in my home. And so for 4 years, 4 days a month, I would go and be with her wherever she was. Sometimes she was at 58. We called it 58. It was 58 West 120th Street in Harlem. And I'd go there. Sometimes she would be in North Carolina. She loved the South. She said when she came into North Carolina, her shoulders relaxed. She was also a force of not just nature, but of love and of goodness. And so it was my prayer when Oprah Radio started, 600 applications. A woman at church said to me, your application came across my desk. I didn't send an application, your resume. I said, that was years ago. She said, well, now we're doing a radio show and we need people to come. She didn't say you're going to get Maya Angelou. So she said, but you know, your resume needs a little work. Will you come by and I'll help you with it? And she did. And I thought to myself, how can I return that? And this is a Maya Angelou saying, and you need to ingrain it. When you get, give. When you learn, teach. I said, what can I give her? She did such a good thing for me. And I remembered I interviewed people on the radio. I called up the general manager of the station and said, may I bring somebody there and show her the ins and outs of a radio station? And he said, sure. And she was in human resources. That helped her job. Out of the 600 people, 9 people got a job, and I was one of them. And when it was time to assign us to have hosts, there was Dr. Oz, there was later Peter Walsh, there was Marianne Williamson, and all of these people. Nobody wanted Maya Angelou as a host. And I'm like, when I found out who the host possibilities were, I'm like praying, I hope I get Maya Angelou. And they said things like, she's too close to Oprah. If you do something wrong with her, you're gone. You're not going to be able to make it. I don't know if you'll be able to please her. And she uses all those words, and she comes in like this, and they were like, ugh. And they said, like, and she's older. And I'm going, I've been around old black women all my life. I like my women over 80. I like old black women. They say stuff, and it's just like, yes, ma'am. You do what they say at that age, you're good to go. So now, here it is. I get Maya Angelou as a host. I'm staying in her house. I'm raiding her refrigerator at night. She slept with a gun under her pillow, so raiding her refrigerator was a big deal. She would cook something and she'd say, at the time my name was, she said, Mrs. Wack, I know that you'll be coming down tonight. You'll be safe, don't worry. I said, thank you very much. So that became a relationship that turned into a mentorship, that turned into a friendship. And I was one of the first people called on May 28th, 2014, when she passed, and was told, get down here. And I packed and got in my car and drove down and was able to help plan her funeral. How did a little girl who was afraid to go get a book, but did it, get to that place? It was what I believed. So I want you to take a look at the trailer of the documentary. And it's now available. You can get it through Apple if you haven't seen it, or maybe even go on the site for public television, American Masters, and you may be able to find it there. But Would you please play it? Thank you.
Everybody in the world uses words. The writer has to take these most known things and put them together in such a way that a reader says, I never thought of it that way before. My mother's boyfriend raped me. I was 7, so I stopped speaking for 5 years. In those 5 years, I read every in the black school library. When I decided to speak, I had a lot to say.
Maya was a dancer. She sang, she was an actress.
I mean, she was a beautiful Giacometti sculpture.
Of course, she was a writer.
When I reached for the pen to write, I have to scrape it across those scars.
Maya was responsible for teaching me why I should know more about my roots, but I remember her being very angry. Very angry.
My mother taught me a love of justice, a love of doing what's right.
I know why the cage bird sings. It was a very important literary feat.
Cage Bird was really almost another Bible for me.
It was the opening for me to wanting to be a writer.
It was the first time I read something that resonated. It touched a very young, girlish part of me.
It reflected my own mother's life.
When I read it, I couldn't believe that she was free enough to talk about them.
I read those words and thought, somebody knows who I am.
She was big, and she had the voice of God.
Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling. I bear in the tide, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave, and so I rise. I rise.
It's such a strong and recognizable voice for our culture and for a time like this. I was really blessed and fortunate to be able to do a documentary on her life. And I want to tell you what she said when I asked to do it. I called her doctor out of respect, and I said, Dr. Angelo, I'd like to do a documentary about your life. And she looked at me and she said, you know I don't need another thing, don't you? Well, again, I have been around those type of women all my life, and I know when you hold your weapon. I didn't say anything. I waited. I let her talk. She said, do you know what you're asking? And I am still finding out the answer to that. What this is going to do for you and your life, and what rooms it's going to put you in, and how hard you're going to have to work, and how much you're going to have to deal with things. Do you know what you're asking? I was married before that documentary. I was not when it was done. Do you know what you're asking? You're asking me in my 80s to go dig up the bones and talk about my life again. I wrote 7 autobiographical memoirs. Do you know what you're asking, little girl? And that was the little girl who could ask for what she wanted and thought, I need a way to honor this woman. I have been doing her radio programs, and I first went to her, I won't say the places I went, but I went and said, I want you to do a special on her. I'd like to do a special. By that time, she was actually on oxygen. And I don't think she could have done the special, because you sit there for 4 hours for them to get the hour that they get. But my spirit was, there has to be a way to tell more people about this. People aren't reading the same way they were. She's not speaking as much as she was speaking. She's helped me in my life. I need to get this word out. And don't forget, ingrained, I am a storyteller. It's your story, it's her story, it's our story. I'd found a great story. And like most women, I want to tell. You know you want to tell, you get something good, you want to tell, you call up, you telling everybody. So now I'm doing this. And the last thing she said to me, after she said, do you know what you're asking? And I couldn't answer that. The first one was a choice, don't stop, let her talk. The second one was, don't have an answer. You don't always have to have an answer. You don't. The next thing she did was, in her flourish of things, she said, well, now if you're going to take it all the way. And that was her answer to me. And when I got those little marching orders, I did the best research I could. I did everything I could, along with the wonderful staff, co-directors, writers, and we just put our heads together. And up until the minute it was out the door, I was trying my best to do what she said, to take it all the way. I don't know if I said it to the first group or if I say it to you now, but again, your words. You speak them, they take up legs, and they go where you told them to go. Some of the stuff that happens to you happens because that's what you said. Say something different. So I'm going to say this, and this comes from my history of reading the Bible. As long as the earth remains, there will be seed time and harvest. You will always be able to plant. You will always be able to reap. If you don't like reaping what you sowed, plant something different. Plant it now. The laws of the harvest are also, not only do you reap what you sow, you don't plant a carrot and get a tomato. I stole that from the Fantastics, and I planted her. All right. But you also reap later than you sow. You put it out there in March or April. You don't get it until August. You put it out in the spring of your life. You harvest in the fall. You get more than you sow. You put in 1 tomato seed, you get 50 tomatoes. Be careful what you're planting. If you plant lies, hate. If you plant unforgiveness, what do you think you're going to get? If you plant love, hope, if you plant all the good things, you're going to get that back. Love, peace, patience, joy, goodness, kindness, gentleness, and self-control. You plant that, that's what you'll get back. So now you saw Maya Angelou. Beautiful sage, accomplished woman, raped as a child. What if those things don't go together? But she was able to get over that. Her trauma led to silence, but even in that silence, she was incubating, she was reading books, she was listening. She said at one point, she would walk into a room and think her whole body was an ear. She was taking it all in, and when she finally was able to speak, she had a lot to say, but in this society, a lot of women are silenced by the powers of this society, which are not generally women. But you incubate, take it in, and get ready to speak. I trust you have a lot to say. So you have to use that. Most of us have had to do so many things. She was a dancer, she was a this, and then she found what she was. It's okay that you try things, and it's okay that you don't know right now. You will know, and then that's what you will do, and you will be successful at it. We have to stand up for ourselves and find our voice, and then we have to teach. That way we can affect the people in the world around us. There's a lot happening to you, but there's a lot happening to so many people. So I want you to do something on a regular basis. I go through my phone from A to Z. It may take me days. It may take me during the month after I've done a workout. If you're in my phone, you're important to me. And every once in a while, I send a text, I send something to check on people. And sometimes it hits them at a time when they needed just that. To get a friend, you have to be a friend. So we're going to go to your superpowers. It wasn't like the Marvel people came here and they had, this is where you came here. You came here and inside you have a superpower. The first superpower that I want to tell you about is your vision. You can see in the dark. Even if something dark has happened, you can still see. You can see in the light. You're always looking. You're always seeing. But vision is twofold. It is what you see that's in front of you. And it's also the vision that you have in your head of what is happening to you, what you see, who you are. And so vision is connected to our voice. And the best thing you can do for children, the best thing you can do for a friend when anybody is in trouble, and the best thing that you can do for yourself is to get to your most authentic voice as soon as possible. Excavate your voice. It's in there. Excavate who you are, and when you get your voice is not just what you say, it's what you stand on. It becomes your principle. It becomes what guides you. Now you can see, now you can say, you can stand up. And that idea of vision is that important to us because in a male-based society, vision for women is somewhat complicated. You know, everybody that's making decisions don't look like you. Be able to see the person that will have some empathy and that will deal with your situation. And don't give stuff away to people that don't want it. When I talk to people and I see their eyes glaze over, I'll stop talking. You don't want to hear what I have to say? Okay, let me save that. But you will get to someone who will connect with you, and you keep looking for that. You can see that. The little girl saw that in me. The little girl and you saw what they wanted. So as you think about that, whether you were well-loved, whether you were a jealous little child, whether you were not loved the way you wanted to be loved, please do not let your past keep dragging you back. I talk to people who are 60 years old. I would have been a dancer if my mother had a, well, honey, baby. I want to do this, but that happened to me. I know that it is really difficult because in a room this size, some of every kind of trauma has happened to someone here. But you cannot get back the last meal you ate. You have to live in the present and use what was in your past, what powers were there that you found to go forward with. You don't want to be a person who looks at life behind them. You have to be a person that looks in front. So I want you to think about that. From Oprah to Maya Angelou to my 98-year-old mother, these women shared with me that their visions began in childhood. My mother grew up in rural Georgia, and she said she had heard about freedom in the North, and she wanted to cross that Mason-Dixon line and escape Washington, Georgia. She was able to move to Chicago. It was what she believed she needed to do. Oprah didn't want to be poor. She wanted to change her life and the lives of people around her because she saw that poverty in Mississippi. And in one business meeting, she talked about being $1,500 in debt and thinking she would never be able to repay that money. And at the end of that business meeting, she said, now I'm going to give you all a trip of a lifetime. And you know how she does that thing, right? And as a result, I went to Ephesus, I went to Turkey, I went to France, I went to Santorini, because that little girl believed in poor rural Mississippi that not only could she help herself, but she could help other people. And she did. Maya Angelou fell in love with poetry when she became a voluntary mute, and you know what happened to that as well. She read it, she was able to write it. I braved the little town jail and became a storyteller. If you feel a connection from your past to your present that really informed you, think about it or write it down, because that little girl was powerful. and you need that same kind of power. Maya Angelou would say, you alone are enough. There is enough in you, no matter what age you are, no matter what race you are, no matter anything, there is enough in you to do what you need to do in this life and to help others. A young woman came over to my house and this past weekend, and she and her husband, we had dinner, and she was a very diminutive, small white woman, seemed kind of not very vocal or anything. And so I began to talk to her, and I asked her how she grew up. And she told me that her father was in the Army, and they went to many places, and one of them was Morocco. And I thought, this little woman was in Morocco at 6 years old. How did that change her life? And the visions of what she saw, ate, and smelled, the way her mother and father got her through that time. Later on, she said to me, my father was just working at 80 and he was working too hard. My mother said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I went to them and said, we need to buy a house. You all need to sell a house. We'll sell the small place we have. Let's buy a house together. She did that, and she said, my father lived another 9 years. And the only thing that I could say to her was in my spirit to say, as her eyes welled, I said, you are a good daughter. And that's what she needed to hear. When you find your voice, use it to tell other people who they are. We do a lot of time talking with one another, and sometimes we stay on the surface. Find out who the people are in your life and encourage them, and that will help encourage you. Our voice is both what we say and our opinion. And so now that is one of our superpowers. Vision led us to voice. Now that we can see, and now that we know how to stand up for ourselves, what the other power we need is discernment. We can see, but discernment is an action. It is an outcry. It is saying, I want to do something. Which way do I go? So there's the Robert Frost, two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I, who could not travel both, stood and decided, you know, I didn't botch that up anyway, which one I would go to. There you go. Okay, here's what you don't want. Retrospect is, I look back over my shoulder and go woulda, coulda, shoulda. Discernment is, I look in front of me and go, I better get some long-term care. I look in front of me and go, I'm gonna help my daughter out right now. I'm going to talk to her, I'm going to listen to her, and I'm going to hear. Discernment is connected to your hearing. What do you hear? What do you hear when someone speaks to you? Sometimes you hear a grifter. I remember there was a young woman in the church program that I ran who told me a sad story about herself, and I gave her some money. Later on, I was talking to her about something else, and she started with another sad story. And before I did anything, she put her hand out. What did I see? What was my discernment? I wasn't helping her by giving her something. I'm not Holy Ghost Junior. I'm not coming down here to help you. You know, you're going to have to pray. You're going to have to act. You're going to have to do what you need to do. Discernment will let you hear how love sounds. Baby, 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 please. I don't think that sounds like love. But if you understand what I'm saying, discernment will allow you to hear. In the same way, vision is connected to your voice. Discernment is connecting to your ears. My aunt taught me how to listen to my spirit with that field and the telephone. There are people who say things. They're the yeah, but people. There's a lion in the square, is a biblical term for it. There's no lion in the square. You're an excuse maker. So am I helping you by listening or feeding your excuses? And so you have to listen to the spirit, and you also have to listen to yourself and use your voice for good. Not long ago, when this whole thing happened in North Carolina, I knew some people in North Carolina, and I called a woman I hadn't heard in years. I just wanted to find out, are you okay? And she said, I was waiting on you to call me. And I said, well, what for? Because she said, you don't know? I said, no, I don't. Well, I called you because of the flood. And she said, in March, I was diagnosed with cancer. I've lost 50 pounds. You wouldn't know me. I'm having surgery tomorrow. What led me to call to her, I just saw news and I did it. When you get a knowing to do something, do it. It may guide you in another direction, and you can offer some encouragement. That is how you use discernment. Discernment will teach you how love feels. Discernment will teach you. I think the Grammy Award-winning singer who goes by the initials H-E-R, her, she has a song that called The Best Part, and in part the lyrics say, I just want to see how beautiful you are. If life is a movie, then you're the best part. Do the people in your life who say they love you treat you like you're the best part? Do you treat them like they're the best part? If there's a disconnection there, then you need to look that head on, use your knife, use your vision, and make some changes. During the quiet of this pandemic, especially when it first began, and you couldn't venture out, I'm sure you heard something about yourself. Don't forget that. You changed some things about your life. You didn't have to go buy a lot of clothes. You weren't going anywhere. You changed some things about your money. You knew that there were things you could do, and you need to do that now. You're not saving for a rainy day. You're saving for the future. When my children were young, I gave them 4 envelopes because a neighbor upstairs in my building in Pittsburgh told me to do this, and I listen to women when they say stuff. 1 envelope was for savings, 1 envelope was for spending, 1 envelope was for investment, and 1 envelope was for giving. I put $1 in those envelopes when they were like 4 years old. At the end of the year, their savings, they could go buy people Christmas presents. They had a budget. They had $52. The investment envelope, I used to add $1 for every $1, and then when it got to the point that I was giving them $5 a week, I said, you know, you never get 100% return on your investment. I got to cut this down a little bit. But they would do their investment, and they would take it, and they learned how to save. They learned how to give. And my son, who's a beautiful young man, who had the biggest feet in America when he was young, he wanted Nike gym shoes, and you could buy them for $49.99. And he wanted some that were like $99. And I said, well, I think you can get them. And he got all good about himself. I said, but I'm only going to pay $49.99, so take your savings envelope. The boy wore $49.99 gym shoes until he left my house. He did not go into his savings for that. He would spend my money, but he wouldn't spend his money. And you don't give children so much that they can't negotiate the world for themselves, because the world isn't going to give them all the stuff you give them. You teach them. And so that's another Maya Angelou. When you get, give. When you learn, teach. So again, this quiet of the pandemic, I think about or write down something that you learned about yourself during this quiet, and don't forget that. This happened to all of us at one time for a reason. The racial unrest, all of it happened at one time for a reason. Don't forget it. Do you need to repeat these things? I would think you don't want to. So I think you need to learn from it. 2017, my marriage ended, and I had been in it for 34 years. And it was so painful to me. I was out golfing in LA once, and I told this story because it was fresh, and you know how we like to tell, to this one woman on the golf course, and she says, honey, don't nobody out here care about that. All of us have been divorced 2 or 3 times. I put my little feelings back and I nurtured them the best I could after that. My divorce was painful for me. It was absolutely painful. I didn't see it coming. I had been with someone for 34 years. I thought we were riding out of here on the same horse together. I was walking with my daughter to the grocery store one day before she knew and I did. And I said a thought out loud, and that thought was, God, please help me put one foot in front of the other. And she looked at me and said, what? Why are you saying that? And later on, she would come to know. I want to tell you, sometimes, and especially when you grow up with this Judeo-Christian background, you don't want to get a divorce. You're like, that's what those other people do. I don't do that. I stay married. That marriage was pulled away from me. It was like God and I had a tug of war. I was like, give it back. He was like, it's not going to work out for you. And I've forgiven that part of my life. And I learned in that vortex to love myself and to love what I had created. I was going to go get another house. I was going to leave. And I looked around and I said, I picked out that sofa. I put that art on the wall. I remember when I drove down and got that dining room set. This place is me. This place is home. And as painful as it was, I put some sun tea out on the porch and sat out and had myself some iced tea and said, now, the only thing I really need to do is to learn how to keep what I have. And so I encourage you, do get your finances together. You need to learn how to keep what you have. You need to learn how to give some things away when it's time to. And you don't want to have more month than money. You don't want to have more years than you can take care of yourself. So there I was with discernment, doing the best that I could. And I wanted to work. And at that time, I did not play golf. And I met a woman that I knew very lightly in a social organization next to me on the treadmill. And she said to me, why don't you come out to coffee, and then why don't you join the golf league? And I'm like, what would I do that for? I didn't play no golf. And the woman has played golf with me only once. This was 4 years ago. I'm on the course at 7 in the morning. I am finding that you need to be open to a change that does something for you. The beauty of the geese, the water, the birds, the time that I can spend alone, and even when I work with the league, I did something different in my life, and it calmed me and it soothed me at a time when I needed to heal. And so you have to allow yourself some healing when some of these things happen, and they will. When somebody dies, when there's a divorce, when there's something tragic that happens to you, be open. Be open to what's happening around you. Use your voice. Call your future to you. Own your truth. Maya Angelou would say to her only grandson, she said, well, she has 2 grandsons, but she said to one that I knew, I am the hand at the small of your back. Those aren't sayings that you hear, but she said, I may let you stumble, but I will never let you fall. I'm that person in your life. The discernment is, I will let you stumble, because stumble helps you to learn how to walk, but you don't let yours fall. So you prepare so that you're not able to do that, so that you're able to show them a future that's good for them. Discernment. Now you can see, you have your voice, you're actively parting things in front of you. And then along comes something that has always been looked at as a horrible thing, and it is your superpower, fear. Fear is a superpower. It is fictional elements that appear real in your life, because you and I can both sit down here and we can make up a whole story about what's going to happen, and none of it could be true. If we're afraid of doing something, we're real apt to do that. Well, if I do this, then that'll happen and that'll happen. You don't know that. So I taught my children when they were young, I said, fear is the devil. Ooh, I said, it's over here going like this. Whenever that happens, look at the other three corners in the room. Look at everything around you. What fear will do is it will let you know that it is trying to distract you from your goal. You're not fearful of that promotion. You're not fearful of that new opportunity. You need to look at it because you've got vision. You know who you are authentically, your voice. You can pass something up if it's not for you. So you don't have fear. You should get to the point, and I've been at the point where it felt like fear came down and sat next to me in the car on the sofa and plopped down, and I could turn around and go, what are you doing here? Fear should be on the outside of you. It should not be on the inside of you. It is not just flight, so I better get out of this situation. It is also something to tell you that you're being distracted. As a writer, I'm given to fiction, so don't make up stories about life. Get out in life. You have a superpower. Combine your vision, your voice, and your discernment and your listening skills, and you can determine that fear will become your superpower. It is just someone saying, you know, when you watch those things and someone says, Thor, look over there, and you stick out your hand and here comes the thing and you bop them out. That's the kind of thing you want to do with fear. It speaks to you. It's more than a signal to run. It's a signal to reevaluate your life and your circumstance. My mother is 98 years old. She did not ever have a lot of money growing up. We are all trying to keep her out of a nursing home by taking care of her and what have you. And one of the things I thought of was, I need to go check my long-term care. That's fine. That's what you do. You decide, I need to take care of myself. So fear will alert you to something. I think I had a lot of times in which I was just starting out. I created a binder, and my binder after the divorce did household, car, insurance, all these kind of things, so I could look at it, so that I could make a good decision instead of being fearful. There's a spirit of lack and a fear of even opening up your bills if you don't have your stuff together. I know it's not just me, so I don't feel shame. But then it piles up as opposed to you calling people and saying, excuse me, you're never going to get all of that for that care. Can I give you this? Can I do that? And you face your situation and you turn minuses into a plus for yourself. Fear is a reminder that you must seek peace, that you alone are enough. When you believe you are enough, you will lose your fear and develop your peace and develop your plan. If you write down something or think of something that you feared in the past and how you conquered that fear, that will help you. If there's anything you fear right now, look at it, write it down, face it, and then look all around you, and you will begin to see what are the next moves that you can make. The fear then brings us to the knowledge that we have resilience. All of us in this room, we've survived a pandemic thus far. We are still here. Sometimes the three most important words for you may be, you are here. They may not be, I love you at that time. They may be the fact that you are here. When you look at your young girl self and you look at yourself now, remember who you are and remember what you want to do. You are actually one of the wonders of the world. You do have superpowers. I don't care if you weathered loss, divorce, childhood trauma, or if you live the life of your dreams. You are here. So I told you about when I finished the Maya Angelou project, I didn't know what I would do next. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I told you that I had the dream. Did I tell you about the dream? So I don't believe people come back from the dead, but I believe that what's on your heart is often in your dreams. So I'm praying and praying, what do I do? And I decided that, how am I going to continue? What do I do after Maya Angelou? That's a pretty big documentary to do. And I had a dream, and in the dream, Maya Angelou said to me, your next documentary is on Marian Anderson. Now, my daughter studied classical voice, so I knew classical voice and I knew that, but I wasn't thinking about Marian Anderson, so typically the way that I talked around her, I said, Marian Anderson? And she said, yes, she has my initials, M.A. At that point, I sat right up in the bed, because I said, now was I dreaming or was somebody in here? What's going on? And I sat up and I was alone, so my computer was next to me. And it's warm, it's a nice computer. And so I opened it up and I said, I looked and I saw the documentaries that had been done on her in the 80s and the book that she had been the author of, My Lord, What a Morning. I ordered it, I read it, I decided how I would direct it, and I put it away. Sometime later, I started chasing a woman who really didn't want a documentary done about her. She since died, an important figure in Hollywood, which is what I call Holly maybe, because some stuff don't work out. So now I went there and I'm taking her to dinner. We're doing all sorts of things. It doesn't work out. And a friend of mine says, I'm doing a documentary on Marian Anderson. And I'm like, that's my documentary. But I didn't say that to her. I was like, So I said, I'm going to give you the book. I could not find that book. If you know me, I know where every book I have is. I know especially if you tried to borrow it, because you didn't, because I don't loan my books out. I just said, you can order that on eBay or something. You know, that's my book. So I couldn't find the book to give to my friend. Time went on, and I asked myself, what are you going to do? And I remembered something that my aunt said. And what she said was, whenever you don't know what to do the last thing you heard clearly. So I went to play golf. So that's the last thing I heard. I went to Clearwater, I played golf, I had a good time with my friends. And on the last day of doing that, I got a call from American Masters, and the executive producer of that series said to me, we have a documentary we'd like you to direct. And I said, what is it? He said, Marian Anderson. I said, I'll do it. He said, I said, no. I will do it. And I've been working on that documentary ever since. You are powerful. You call things into being. You call them to yourself. How does a little girl get to be a writer, a documentarian, and sit in the homes of people like Maya Angelou for 4 years, 4 days a week, 4 days a month? Because I believed, because I called it to myself, because we were from the same tribe, because I recognized it. And that's what happened with us. So I have that understanding that your resilience, the fact that you are here, helps to promote faith in yourself. If you would let that settle and trust this moment, whatever you have been through, the fact that you are here, think about the things that you have gotten over, that you have managed, and that will give you the faith to go forward, but it will also give you something else. It will give you gratitude. You should be grateful. You are here. That gratitude is something that means that for people that do what they do, Oprah Winfrey would say that she prays every night. She thanks God for what she has. That is one of her superpowers, to be that grateful. Maya Angelou would say the same thing. I am so grateful for what I have. And so you want to live in that gratitude. There are times when life says it's time to hibernate or pause or take inventory. But that gratitude, to even be able to do that, is the responsibility of your being here, is to be grateful. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it's a verb. When I know that I'm really grateful, I act a certain way. And so what we do is, I'm going to give you this. Am I at time? Okay. All right. Okay, sorry. You know, I have certain habits. They're kind of bad. Okay, so here would be an Oprah Winfrey. You are responsible for your life, and if you're sitting around waiting on somebody to save you, to fix you, to even help you, you are wasting your time, because only you have the power to take responsibility to move your life forward. What matters is now, this moment, and your willingness to see this moment for what it is. Accept it. Forgive the past, take responsibility, and move forward. I came to realize that all the time I was praying to God, asking for God to do something, God was waiting on me. Maya Angelou would say, nothing will work unless you do. Let's commit to working. And I'm going to end with my my little song that I'm not going to sing. I don't have that gift, that Maya Angelou would listen to in the morning, and she'd go, I wish I wrote that. And it's a country song by Kenny Chesney. Don't blink. I turned on the evening news, saw an old man being interviewed, turning 102 today. Asked him what the secrets to life. He looked up from his old pipe, laughed, and said, all I can say is, don't blink. Just like that, you're 6 years old and you take a nap. And you wake up and you're 25, and your high school sweetheart becomes your wife. Don't blink. You just might miss your babies growing like mine did, turning into moms and dads. Next thing you know, your better half of 50 years is there in bed, and you're praying God takes you instead. Trust me, friend, 100 years goes faster than you think, so don't blink. I was glued to my TV when it looked like he looked at me and said, best start putting first things first, because when your hourglass runs out of sand, you can't flip it over and start again. Take every breath God gives you for what it's worth. Don't blink. Thank you very, very much.
Wow, Rita, thank you is just not enough, but I hope from the reactions of all of these women here today that you feel the impact of your words. And ladies, I hope you are all as inspired and motivated as I am right now. My wish is that you take some of this energy and go out and do something positive with it. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't advocate that you put a little bit of that energy, at least, into your financial health. We are here to be partners in your journey to make your mark in life. So please reach out to us. Tell us what you'd like to see. Give us any type of feedback. We encourage you to use your voice. And above all, let's do all that we can to keep this energy going. Thank you, ladies.